Allie. Join me as I go over with you the very basics of bead embroidery. We're going to be making a simple pair of earrings, and if you are a kit box subscriber, this is in your box, so check it out. You're going to use some simple materials, just 11 seed beads, some backing, and a cabochon. Gather up your supplies and learn how to do bead embroidery. So once you have your backing glued onto your cabochon and it's been sitting for a while, what we're going to do is we are going to frame the outside of the cabochon with some 11 seed beads, and then we're going to do a picot trim as we frame and finish the outside of the backing. Now, if you want to, you can also cut another piece of backing and glue a second piece so it finishes and covers all your thread path. I'm not going to bother because I want to show that little bit of work and show you how to do it. So I've taken a size 10 needle and tied onto it about 2.5 feet of gray thread since I'm using a gray backing. I'm going to go right into the backing here, and I'm going to come out right next to the cabochon. Again, this is like as simple as you can do it. So just kind of go here. Once you get the first two established, it's easier. So go along the side here, and you're going to go through with your needle and thread and come out right along the side of your cabochon. Coming out along the side of the cabochon, I forgot to mention, sorry about that, that I did tie a knot in the end of my thread, so it stays right there and it kind of has it on the back that it's not coming through. It's just like sewing a button. We're going to begin with 1 and 2 11 seed beads. These are going to sit right next to our 10mm cabochon. So what we're going to do is eyeball and see exactly where we need to punch through basically with our needle to get that hole. Looking there, I'm going to go in now and take my needle and thread right along the side of the cabochon and go into the back of the suede. That's going to lay those 2 beads right along the side of the piece. Now see how they fold open a little bit, and in our sample we want them nice and round. The way that we're going to do that is we're going to go back into the first area or the first hole, so right next to that knot, we're going to go right next to it and bring our thread and needle through all the way through the back here. And then what we're going to do is sew through beads number 1 and number 2 again. And we're going to add beads number 4 and 5, or 3 and 4. They're going to go right next to the last one. So I'm going to kind of eyeball this, go in here, punch on through with my needle and thread, and have those beads lay right next to the previous ones. From here, back through to your first ones one more time. I'm making sure my thread's not getting too far away from where it needs to go. And we're going to go back through beads 1, 2, 3, and 4. Now, our final time around, once we have all of our seed beads there, we're going to go through all the seed beads to make that nice continuous line. But from here on, what we're going to do is adding 2 beads at a time, going through, punching the hole into the back, and then you're going to sew through the last 4 beads. The 2 that you just added, so I'm going to take my needle and thread, poke it through, coming up, back to a little bit past where we are, right next to my cab. Taking that through, I'm going to see right where it comes through and go through beads 1, 2, 3, and 4. The 2 that I just added and the previous 2. 2 more get added, and then I do the same thing. When you look along the back, you'll have a thread line that goes the whole way around your cabochon. So see how those thread lines go the whole way around the cabochon. On the exterior, you're going to continue adding 2 beads at a time, sewing through your suede there, that ultra backing. Lay those 2, go back and bring your needle through to the front, right next to the cab. Sew back through those 2 beads that you just added, but also the 2 beads that sit before. I'm going to continue going the whole way around my cabochon, adding in my seed beads with this simple embroidery technique. How are hundreds of jewelry makers saving huge each month on premium jewelry making kits? With the PotomacBeads kit subscription, you'll receive 3 brand new kits every month for as little as $49.99. That gives you a savings of up to $70 per box on retail prices. And you get free shipping. And there's no long-term commitment. You can cancel at any time. Subscribe today and enjoy top quality kits and massive savings. Visit PotomacBeads.com/subscription today, or click on the link below in the description to get links to get back to our website. Once you're getting ready to close the circle, and you should have about 24 beads, I'm putting on the last two, 23 and 24, and I'm still going to go in and go down through the piece before skipping right over to connect them, adding in all of those beads there. And now what I'm going to do is go back through, back my 4 beads just like I've been doing, and do that back stitch, kind of coming out wherever. And I'm going to look where my thread came out, and now we're going to go in and we're going to connect that whole seed bead line. So this is nice because it closes up any gaps. If you have any beads that are kind of pulled back a little bit, this is going to bring them all towards the center. You don't want too many beads. It's almost better to have less beads than too many beads because you don't want it crowding around the center. And you're just going to sew through. You can see I'm just sewing through all of those beads right in a row and pulling that into a nice line. That way, if you have any beads in sets of 2 or 4 that kind of pulled a different way or a little bit separated, this will go in and pull that together. After this, we're going to go in and we are going to use the stitches along the back as a line to trim our fabric down. When we trim the fabric down, we're going to keep it into a rounded shape to mimic the cabochon, even though we have a squared shape started out. I like to have a larger piece here because it's easier to hold on to. After you've gone the whole way around, you're going to go into the back of the piece and just bring your thread and needle through. You've got your nice center ring. So flipping over now, you can see your thread lines. And what you want to make sure as we trim down is that you're not trimming into that seam. We're going to do a little picot trim with a tiny bit of brick stitch here. That is going to go the whole way around the earring stud. To do so, you're just going to take your scissors, and I do it to the front, and just before I do my cut, I'm going to go and just kind of cut around the side, trimming down. Now I know I'm not getting anywhere close to where I ultimately need to be. I'll go in and trim closer, kind of flipping over the back and looking through. I want the end of my fabric to end right at my seed beads. No further, no less. So now that I've got the basic shape, you can still see I see a lot of thread there. I'm going to turn over and make sure there's no spots where I might get close. I can go in with sewing scissors with a little bit of a better edge if I want to. I'm just going to go in right along the seed beads and just trim down, going right in really close. And these are just craft scissors from the drawer. If you use sewing scissors, you're going to get even better of a cut here. So go ahead and just go the whole way around, cutting and making sure that your fabric ends right along your seed beads. And then we'll get in and do our little brick stitch with our picot trim. Once you have the fabric cut all along the line of the seed beads, you can see it's not perfect. It doesn't need to be. This is what I want you to get with this simple bead embroidery. The first thing you're going to do is take your needle and thread from the back where we came out of, kind of move that stop or starter thread so it's out of the way. And we'll cut that down as we get closer to the end and finishing off. We're going to take our needle and thread and we are going to push it through to the front of the piece, oops, towards the outside of the seed beads. So you want to make sure that you're above the thread line that goes through the seed beads. Now what we're going to do is brick stitch. Brick stitch is a very simple stitch, usually requiring 2 beads. We're going to do 3 because the middle bead is going to work as a bead that keeps the thread from showing. Has that little bit of a picot trim around the outer edge. So I have 1, 2, and 3 11-0s in an alternate color. And this color is going to hide the gray backing really, really well. It's why I chose the gray backing, but also the seed beads, again, will hide that. I'm going to go over to 2 beads wide. So you kind of have a direction there that will show you exactly where you need to put your thread and needle. I have those 2 beads there. I'm going to go right after that second bead, and I'm going to sew from the back towards the front, right at the top of that thread, or right at the top of the fabric, above the seed beads. That's going to lay those 2 beads there. I'm going to go back up through bead number 3 towards the top. Give a nice tight pull. Bead number 1 will get back to sit correctly as we come around and get to the end. I'm going to add 2 more beads here, one for the brick stitch and one for that little picot at the top. If you don't want the picot at the top or you want to pull 15-0 from your stash, you can do that as well too. I'm just keeping it really simple. 2 beads go on. I go to the front of the next seed bead and I'm going to grab on to that fabric. So from the back towards the front, and then I'm going to sew back up through the second bead with that first bead just hanging there right along the top. Again, 2 more beads. My thread's coming out the top there. I'm going to go into the back near the next seed bead line. I'm going to sew in through the fabric there. And that one I needed just a little bit more grab of a fabric. So from the back towards the front, and then out through bead number 2. Again, bead number 1 is just there to hang out. So you see the pattern that's going along the top, and when you go to the back, you hardly even see those thread edges that you're working with. 1 and 2 beads go on, going from the back towards the front to the next area where there's seed beads. Sew up and through bead number 2 towards the top. Bead number 1 will sit with the hole going on the horizontal. Bead number 2 will sit with the hole going through the vertical. And you're just going to go the whole way around the exterior, grabbing onto that little bit of fabric that's there that you can see in front of the beads, sewing back through bead number 2 and working your way around. It's super simple. Do you need to do this? No, absolutely not. You can cut the fabric underneath just a little bit shorter so you don't see it at all. And then remember, if you want to, you can cut another piece of round ultra backing and you can put it on top of all of your stitches from your seed beads that go around your cabochon. You're just going to continue on adding your beads, and guess what? This is simple bead embroidery. You have now conquered that task of thinking that you might not be able to do bead embroidery. The world is open. It's just like when you learn wire working for the first time. It opens up a whole new level for you. You're just going to keep going around. Once you get to the start where your beads are going to sit right next to one another, you are going to basically cross a bridge, adding 1 bead, and you're going to go over to bead number 1. Because remember, we started with 3 beads in our brick stitch. We're going to add 1 more bead that's going to sit right there or in the horizontal, and we're going to go down through bead number 1. And see how that's just going to kind of sit there in the middle. I'm going to go back underneath the thread line there, underneath my fabric, and then I'm going to go back up through bead number 1 to get that to sit correctly. And that pulls that first bead in so that it's sitting correctly and connects the last bead to it. I'm going to go back through that last bead that I just added, down through the seed bead that sits before it. As I go down through that, I'm also going to sew through the fabric towards the back of the piece. Now, your thread ends are close together and near one another. If you want to, you can tie them together, or you can simply tie this thread by itself. What I'm going to show you is how you sew underneath that fabric, just the tiniest little bit, pulling your needle through it, not going through the front of the design. You're going to sew through that fabric, go through that loop that you just created, sewing through the fabric once, go through that loop that you just created, sewing through the fabric a second time. That's going to give you a nice sewer's knot. Pull nice and slow, and that gets you right along the back of the piece, pulling that in for your piece to go right up against the side. What you're going to do then is trim that down. That thread end there, and mine got a little bit of a knot, but that's okay because I'm going to show you what you can do. Right there along the back, you're going to take your thread zap or your thread burner, or you can actually take a flame there. You're going to go in and burn all those flames down, or those ends down, and that's going to go right to the back. You're never going to feel that on your ear. It's nice and simple. And it creates a little bit of a ball on the back of your thread. which is going to prevent it from coming through to the front. That is the most simple form of bead embroidery that you can do, both around the outer edge and that tiny little picot trim. And now you know how to do bead embroidery pieces. Many bead embroidery pieces look like they're so complicated, but it's just this same technique over and over on a larger scale. Thanks so much for joining me in creating these vapor simple embroidery earrings. They're really the first step in what could be a really fun and exciting project, or just keep it simple like these and wear them every day. You can make lots of different pairs, all kinds of things in the middle, and I can't wait for you to share your creations with our Facebook page for beading and jewelry making. Remember also, if you want to subscribe to the Best Bead Box Kit Edition to get projects like this and more, you can check out the link below the video in the descriptions to get back to our website. As always, thanks so much for joining us, and stay tuned for more inspirational designs.